I know that it has been a few days, but I did know that this report was going to be coming in sometime shortly. And of course, now we officially have it.
Assistance Center that's going to open from 3:30 to 7 in the afternoon as we wait here in a couple of hours to hear from both Mayor Brandon Johnson and Superintendent Larry Snelling on the update and their response to the holiday weekend violence.
And what did the mayor of Chicago do? For some odd reason, he chose to blame Richard Nixon.
Cut off the pipeline of boys between the ages of 10 and 19 being either victims or the perpetrators. So, yeah, it is personal. Black death has been unfortunately accepted in this country for a very long time. We had a chance 60 years ago to get at the root causes, and people mocked President Johnson, and we ended up with Richard Nixon. I'm going to work hard every day to transform this.
Well, somebody in the comment section to please explain to me how it is that Richard Nixon, a guy who resigned from office in 1974, a guy who died in 1994, I want somebody to explain to me how it is that he is responsible for the terrible job that Brandon Johnson is doing in the city of Chicago. I want him to explain to me how it is that Richard Nixon is responsible for all the gun violence. I want somebody to explain to me how it is that Richard Nixon is responsible for the extremely hostile culture that is inside the city of Chicago and also in the city of New York and America's largest cities as a whole. I just want somebody to explain this. Now, over the weekend, 4th of July weekend, it was estimated that it was right around 99 people total got shot, with 17 being killed. Those numbers have officially been updated to 109 that got shot. Now, I can already hear somebody screaming and hollering about gun control in the comment section, and don't worry, there's going to be a video out about that this week because somebody got this radical idea just to go ahead and just start handing them out. But then again, at the same time, I'm not exactly against that if you properly train people, and I'm very, very much pro Second Amendment. That right there will be a video that we shall do here this week. This is going to be a bit of a wonky week because I'm still waiting on whether to go up to the actual hospital and actually get these things removed or not. I may be forced to keep them in for the next week and a half. I don't know. But still, the point is this right here. A lot of people got shot at. A lot of people got shot in Chicago over the weekend, and it's actually more than the previous year's number. Okay, now before we get to the next news report, here's the idea that's being kicked around Chicago, and I think I did a video on this before, except it was out of Connecticut that this happened. They want more community policing. I mean, they want more people to actually get involved, to actually police the community itself. Now, I have said before that that should actually happen. Communities should get more and more and more involved when it comes to, well, their own community. All right, they should be actually getting involved and actually stopping crime in their area, because if you actually look at the crime itself, you see that it's in certain areas and it continues to spread out through the entire city. However, if you could actually start protecting certain communities, as in protecting your own community, as in people patrolling their own community, as in people actually cleaning up their own community, then this right here is a problem that will eventually find a way to, let's just say, reduce itself. It won't fully kill the problem. It won't fully put it away, but of course, it will ultimately help. Now, right now at this moment in time, it's being discussed and it's being called on for people who actually live in these communities to become leaders, and of course also not only become leaders but actually police the community. If you guys remember correctly, there was a video that I had did earlier, which I'll try to link in the description box, that came out roughly right around the time that you had the incident in New York where the squatters were taking people's homes, and of course they were getting away with it. And it was a community in Hartford, Connecticut, or right outside of Hartford, Connecticut, that decided to actually do their own community policing. Now, does this community policing, does it mean that you need to have weapons or anything like that? Well, let me just put it this way here. Chicago is called Chirac for a reason.
Since the start of the holiday weekend, Wednesday evening, our latest numbers show at least 103 people have been shot, 19 of them killed. Those numbers are nearly double what we saw last year, and now both Mayor Brandon Johnson and Superintendent Larry Snelling are trying to find ways to provide support to the community. That we know we've heard so far took place in West Chesterfield, and at East 89th Place, where 2 people were shot, 1 of them killed. And that was just minutes before the shooting you're going to see here that took place in South Austin neighborhood, where 1 person was shot and killed. And of course, all of this coming as police have been very busy still investigating the murder of a 26-year-old man who was shot and killed while walking in the South Loop, sending neighbors into panic.
I was walking my dog at the dog park across from the Marriott by like 320 East 21st over there, and I heard like at least 15 clear gunshots.
Now, arming people is a conversation that I will have in the video that will come out on Thursday over this new idea in the state of Texas, which I actually think is a good idea if you are going to train people. One of the ideas that I've always said is that these police departments in Chicago, the old police precincts, if you've got stock weapons like stock pistols, stock shotguns, things of that nature, then maybe what you should do is, I don't know, maybe get some people together in the community, 5 or 6 deep, take them to a gun range, teach them how to actually use a weapon. I know somebody's probably going to say that's a bit of a radical idea, but I think that an armed society is a safe society. It's a happy society. And I think if gang members know that a certain society is actually armed or a certain neighborhood is armed, or they just can't just roll up inside of a neighborhood and just start shooting people or shooting at people, chances are they probably won't be going inside these neighborhoods and doing this. Now, the incident that people are looking at the most involved 2 teenagers getting shot. Now, let me say this really quick. What is the best way, or let me ask a question, what do you think the best way to curb this kind of violence is? Number 1, you need to fix the culture. Number 2, there needs to be some form of civic responsibility. And number 3, to go on top of this, I think people being armed, as I mentioned before, ensures a deterrent against would-be shooters and gang members, which is a concept that the city of Chicago, or at least the police department, have finally begun to get the grasp of.
We need to take these people off the street, and we need to keep them off the street.
That is Police Superintendent Larry Snelling about an hour ago addressing the city's violent holiday weekend. At least 17 people are dead and 89 others injured in shootings across Chicago. Mayor Brandon Johnson also weighed in, calling on communities to help police. Our Mugo Odigwe was at that news conference and joins us with what else they had to say.
Both Superintendent Snelling and Mayor Johnson said the police department is putting forth every effort right now to deal with and prevent the type of violence we saw this holiday weekend. But they also said they'll need help from the community.
I'll talk about getting certain people off the street more towards the end of the video, but I want to focus in on this thing about helping communities out and getting communities involved first. Okay, my bad. It was actually the mayor who was calling on this, but let me say this really quick, because the city of Chicago is a city that has some of the strictest gun laws in America. Gun control does not work, all right? It just does not. Okay, every time somebody brings up gun violence or they bring up banning guns or anything, it doesn't work. Okay, the only thing it leads to is just more and more shooting. It's a very, very odd thing. You would probably think to yourself that, hey, look, man, maybe if there was a ban on certain types of firearms or ban on guns, maybe the shootings would go down. No. They actually go up because more and more illegal weapons come in. They get sold cheaper, ammo, all that type of stuff there. And there's also other reasons why. I'm just citing one of the reasons. I'm pretty sure that somebody who's got an full-blown 2A channel is probably going to come in here, probably rip that take up, even though I'm obviously a 2A guy. You guys have been subscribed to me from the very start know this. Colion Noir is one of the best. I'm not entirely a fan of his USCCA stuff, but I also think Heavy Duty Country also does a very good job at explaining as well. A lot of very, very good gun channels out there. Mr. Guns and Gear is also very good. There's a lot of them out there, Guns and Gadgets too. But obviously gun control does not work, and it has not worked in this actual city. Now, I can already hear somebody saying, well, what about the red states where the gun violence is high? Well, chances are it's because, as you guys, and I've said this before, if say like a state like, say, Missouri, where you've got St. Louis, where gun violence is through the roof, yeah, it's a blue city within a red state. Same thing with New Orleans, same thing with Dallas, Texas, same thing with Houston, Texas. It's the same thing with, Phoenix, too, even though Arizona's not really a red state anymore. But the point is this right here. It's blue cities within red states. And, of course, it even gets worse when you look at blue cities within blue states. I mean, the stats are undeniable, but, of course, people love to ignore that and ignore what the hell is right in front of their face. It's a good idea to get communities involved to actually help out, but you're going to need to equip these people so that way they can actually do what it is that you want them to do there, Brandon.
If we want to avoid having these types of press conferences and these types of meetings again, we need every single person to step up. We need people to start coming forward. We need people to take responsibility. Help us help you.
Right now, police are investigating dozens of shootings across the city, some of them deadly. Others happened as recently as late last night. That includes this deadly scene in the Austin neighborhood. Police tell us officers were doing a well-being check around 11:30 last night at a building on Central Avenue. Inside, they found a 36-year-old man bleeding and unresponsive on the kitchen floor. The man had a gunshot wound to his head and died at the scene. Then about 20 minutes later, close to midnight in Chatham, a teenager was killed and another injured after a shooting near East 89th Place. Police say the teen boys, one 18 years old, the other 16, were on the street when an argument broke out.
On and on and on about fathers not being in the household. I could go on and on and on about a lack of male figures. By the way, if you have something like neighborhood policing with actual residents in the neighborhood mentoring young men, this could also go a very long way. It hasn't got to be an actual father. It could just be a good old-fashioned guy who's just kind of mentoring kids or whatnot. Because an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old, I'm just simply saying that coaching is something that, quite frankly, could help out with this situation, especially when it comes to the culture. Let me give you guys an example of what I mean by this. There's a big hoopla every election cycle about abortion, and you guys know me, I'm very, very pro-life. But I think that really the best way to actually fix that problem is that if you got rid of the taxpayer-funded stuff, meaning like if you got rid of the provision that said that you can get it taxpayer paid for, I think if you did that there, you would probably remove the incentive for people to go get it, meaning that obviously you have to pay for it. And people obviously don't want to pay for things. I think if you got rid of that and stopped taxpayer dollars from paying from it, that would curb a lot of it. It would also help to actually help fix the culture itself. I think if you could actually fix a lot of the culture, if you had actual literal men there, literal actual honest-to-God coaches in the area, I think that could actually help a lot of these young men out, especially those who are in gangs or those who are coming out of gangs or those trying to get away from gangs. And I think if you did that, that would probably curb about half of what the hell is going on. Obviously, evil will still exist, but how do you defeat evil? You defeat evil with something good. And how do you ensure that, and I mentioned this earlier about my abortion example, and then I want to go ahead and just kind of clamp down on it one more time so that way you don't get confused. We love to say, look, if you're thinking about aborting a child, please don't do that because you're ending the child's life before it even really truly starts. Maybe you should give the child for adoption. Well, if you get rid of the taxpayer loophole that pays for abortion or the morning after pill, then guess what? More than likely, she's probably going to have the child, or more than likely, she's going to be inclined to have the child. I'm just simply saying if you've got good male role models in these areas, actual coaches, there isn't going to be a father, chances are that would curb a good portion of what was going on, and these young men would get taught the right things that would not lead them to this type of a lifestyle of violence. And for whatever reason, obviously they choose the 4th of July, Memorial Day weekend, and Labor Day weekend to do this type of stuff when people are trying to have fun and enjoy the fireworks and enjoy grilling out. Like I said, it's Chirac, and it's obviously Chirac for a reason. Sad situation, but of course, Chicago's been under bad management, bad leadership for a very long time, and leadership just continues to get worse and worse and worse. But hey, what do I know? An 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, the city itself, the cops are stretched out, stretched pretty thin, trying to investigate these shootings, try to answer these shootings. And of course, you've got a mayor in Brandon Johnson who does not exactly like police. I understand you want to get communities involved, and I just said communities probably should get involved. But as I've said before, and I'll say again, if you're going to get them involved, you need to actually give them the things that, quite frankly, they would need so that way they would be, in fact, effective. One of the problems that and one of the things I've noticed the most with liberals, especially left-wingers, and not every Democrat, just saying most, just liberals. For whatever reason, they don't seem to understand that when you go to some of these calls, and I understand we're kind of switching up gears for a second, but when you go to some of these calls, let's say domestic violence calls, or calls where people are losing their mind, going crazy, whatnot, they want a social worker to go. They also want that social worker to not be armed. No. You need to have a cop go up there. Maybe you can bring a social worker with you. Maybe you can get some police officers that actually do that as well on the side, but still they need to be armed. Okay? It's a deterrent, all right? It's also there for personal protection, but let's continue.
That suspect pulled out a gun and shot the two of them. The 18-year-old died at the hospital. The 16-year-old is in fair condition. Here's some of what Mayor Johnson had to say about the violence.
We are standing here today talking about a violent weekend because of generations of disinvestment. and deep disenfranchisement in the exact communities where so much of the violence is taking place. But we are here to say emphatically that this is enough.
Meantime, an emergency assistance center will be open tomorrow starting from 3:30 to 7 p.m. for crime victims across the city in need of support. At police headquarters, Mugo Odigwe, CBS.
Mayor Brandon Johnson is weak. He's a very, very, very weak male. The previous mayor, Lori Lightfoot, everybody knew was weak, but they also knew that she was aloof and therefore she was not respected. But then again, at the same time, though, I think the criminals felt that the mayor was on their side. With Brandon, they're seeing a guy who's just straight up lost and a guy who's just extremely weak. This is the same guy who said that the flash mob rioters were hungry and that's the reason why they were causing the riots. They've taken advantage of Brandon, and of course, the situation is getting a lot worse. If you actually go through the stats, and don't worry, they'll be in the description box, you'll see that it once again continues to get worse and worse and worse. Well, why might that be the case? Well, you don't have strong male leadership in the actual city itself. It's not just the communities, but you have to give these people something to respect. If they don't respect you, they're going to continue to walk all over you, and it also goes back to overall not just community organizing or community protection, it also goes to actual like and love for your community. I keep putting it out there all the time that civic responsibility or lack of civic responsibility has got a lot to do with the crime itself. But like I said, once again, what do I know? It's enough, huh? Okay, as far as what you need to do, number one, first thing you can do is you can cut the funding to these migrants because obviously Chicago's a sanctuary city. By the way, we'll be talking about that a little bit more this week because we have a story out of New York we need to cover, which will probably come out tomorrow to go along with this story about Alzheimer's. But then again, I haven't exactly figured out exactly what days are going to come out. That's the first thing you can do. Number two, you can also restore said cash that's been taken to the police department so that way they can actually hire officers, so that way the officers themselves actually get adequate amounts of rest, stuff like that, so that way they're not stretched thin. Something else you can do is also, like I said before, you can also approve measures like, say, stock weapons, shotguns, pistols, going to these communities and actually teach people how to properly defend themselves. If you also want to send out pepper spray, you can. But then again, at the same time, that pepper spray is not effective on everyone. And by the way, it would not save everybody's life in the actual community. Just to pepper spray somebody, if they get away, they could always come back. Something else that needs to happen as well is that people need to actually be charged and people need to actually go away, go to jail, rather than allowing more and more and more repeat offenders on the street. We can talk about changing culture at a later date, but I want to focus for the most part on the immediate. Also, speaking of guns, what you could also do is you could get the city to change some of its ordinances so that way people can, in fact, get firearms so that way they can defend themselves. As I said before, gun control does not work. It never does work. If anything, it makes the issue a lot worse. Now, this right here is the last thing I'm going to say for this video here. This right here is like a broken record. It's sad. Every 4th of July weekend, every Labor Day weekend, every Memorial Day weekend, you hear about the city of Chicago and you hear about the death toll. You hear about people getting shot. 17 dead. Should not be dead. The original shot toll was right around 91. Then it was 99. Now it's back up to 109. People are still trying to figure out exactly how many people got hurt. Of course, the hospitals are also probably stretched thin as well because obviously after someone gets shot, they more than likely go to the hospital and then you got to wait for reporters to come in. So we're still waiting on the numbers because some people obviously still have not healed from their wounds. Fact of the matter is this right here. If you would undo the strict gun laws and actually allow people to actually defend themselves and also defend their neighborhoods, chances are these types of shootings, these types of incidents would not be as, it would not occur as often. Also, to go on top of that too, these 4th of July weekends, which by the way are designed to be for celebratory purposes, they would also be a lot safer and people would not be scared or fearing the possibility or likelihood of possibly getting shot. Just simply saying. This right here falls at the feet of weak leadership, and the city of Chicago has been under weak leadership for a very, very, very long time, all the way back since the 1990s. But under Brandon Johnson, it's gotten way, way worse. But at least somebody has actually woke up and sees that something must be done. Normally in the city of Chicago, nobody wakes up at all. They automatically assume that they're in the right with their laws, but obviously they can't seem to see that their way of doing things, or at least the strict gun control they have, is only making the problem a lot worse. Undo the ordinances on firearms, allow people to carry, allow people to protect their own communities, and just do that there. If you do that right there, it will take care of half the problem, and then from there you can build on that. With that right there being said, guys, you tell me what you think in the comment section. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section, and I'll see you guys later.